All right, today we're going to talk about, is the U.S. economy destroying the future for young men? While the stock market continues to make record highs almost every week, it seems, young men in particular report low levels of life satisfaction, and it shows in the statistics with the opportunity we have. So, we're going to talk about the historical context. How has previous generations' experiences been compared to Gen Z, younger millennials, and the like? So, post-World War II, there were affordable homes, a union-backed manufacturing ring with a lot of blue-collar jobs, right? And one income could provide an entire household with stability, right? Traditionally, the father had his one job, whether it was factory or office job or something like that, right? He could afford to be married, to have 2 or 3 children, to have a home, and to have 2 cars, all on one single job, right? One paycheck. That really does not exist anymore. Today, if people even get married, right, they are having to work multiple jobs, both them and their spouse, right? You have to save up to even think about having kids because there's a lot of uncertainty with the economics side of that, and thinking about your future is a huge part of having children, right? And so the one job kind of provides everything, and by the way, you would have that job for 20, 30, 40 years even. Everyone nowadays job hops every 1, 2, 3 years. And I was in Vegas recently, and I sat next to an older guy, and I asked him, we started talking, right? And he said, yeah, I retired from, I think it was Ford or General Motors, worked for the same company for 40 years, retired, had a pension, and he's good. That is an anomaly now. Actually, it doesn't even exist, okay? So in the 1980s to 2000s, we saw manufacturing jobs decline. We see the globalization of the economy and outsourcing, right? So no longer can you just get a manufacturing job, sit there, and do your job for your whole working career. Now you have to compete against globalization, right? People from across the globe competing for the same job for you online, outsourcing with H-1B visas, right? Or even just completely remote work. And now on top of that, if that wasn't bad enough, you have to fight against robots and AI to have an income and have a job, okay? So today, the economy is dominated by services, automation, and financial speculation. I would say even we're now in a hyper-financialized environment to where everything, the moment you step out of your door, even sit at home on your phone, everything is designed to suck as many dollars out of you as possible, right? So today, wages have been stagnant. Actually, this has been the case since the 80s. The average income for men is roughly $61K. It has not changed. It has not gone up since 1980, 1981, something like that. The cost of living, however, has inflated drastically. Just since the year 2000, we've lost almost 50% of the value of the US dollar. So you take $1, it only gets you half of where it used to get you in 2000. And actually, half of that inflation has been since 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020, okay? So 90% of children born in the 40s out-earned their parents. Actually, this has been the case for every generation, right? Every generation has out-earned, done better, had more economic stability, bought bigger, nicer homes, had nicer cars, vacations, and all that. Now, the statistics aren't fully in, but we see that's not the case. Now that's a declining trend. So younger generations, under 30 typically, are no longer out earning their parents. They're having to stay at home longer. They're having to fight for jobs harder. The cost of education has skyrocketed, right? All of these hurdles have gone up with this environment we are in, to where we are no longer doing better than our parents. Huge, major reversal, okay? So if that wasn't bad enough, we'll talk about the economic pressures facing young men. You need to be aware of this so that you know how to pivot and get around them and all of that. So stagnant wages since the 80s, right? Since the 80s, men are not earning anymore, okay? The college degree used to show, if you had a college degree versus just high school education, you would earn roughly 75% more income over your lifetime with a 4-year education. But with that, a lot of degrees are now inflated in costs. They've gone up 15 times since 1980. The cost of a degree has gone up 15 times roughly. Also, so many people now have degrees to where it's like the baseline. It's not like a leg up. It's like, no, you need this. The bar has been raised. This is now the common thing. Otherwise, you're not even able to get a job. So stagnant wages, a lot of factors that go into that, but we're not getting any more economic power just working a regular job. Okay, rising cost of living across the board. We know home prices have skyrocketed, almost doubled in some cases since 2020, since COVID, right? Car payments, insurance, food, everything costs much more money because of inflation, because of the Fed printing money, and all these other macroeconomic reasons, meaning just to have the same level of quality of life, you need to spend a lot more money, but we're seeing that wages aren't keeping up with inflation. Actually, that has been decoupled massively, right? And so massive debt burdens are also a factor here. So the average student loan debt coming out of a 4-year degree is roughly, depending how you look at the data, $39,000, okay? So you have to make those student loan payments. Under Biden, he paused those, but now with Trump, you have to pay them back. Otherwise, you default, but you can't default on student loans. You have to pay them back. You can't just declare bankruptcy out of it. So this is a huge trap that people get into. Get out of college, maybe didn't pick the strongest degree with the most economic opportunity, but you still have to pay back your loan. And a lot of people spend their entire life doing this. So that hurts your buying power, right? Also, credit card debt has reached an all-time high as of this year, 2025, around July, now over 1.1 trillion, okay? Total credit card debt, and this just keeps on climbing, right? And the average credit card debt is $7,300, $7,300, and APRs, average percentage rate for carrying a balance that high, really start to bite you in the ass right at 30% interest on that amount. If you're just making minimum payments, then you're not even buying down the principal that you owe. Making minimum payments actually keeps you on this hamster wheel of your credit card debt continues to increase just so you can survive, right? So not looking good there. What about employment trends? Well, we all know blue-collar jobs have been in decline for 40 or 50 years, okay? We see shrinking U.S. manufacturing. Trump is trying to turn that around with the One Big Beautiful Bill and giving incentives for businesses to build and manufacture things, give them tax cuts and all of that. But this takes a long time, right? So on top of that, blue-collar work has always been stigmatized. If you work in an office, you're seen as higher social status than if you work at blue-collar, even if you make the same amount of money, or the blue-collar guy might make more. People see that as low class for whatever reason, okay? Also, the rise of the gig economy. This is an interesting one. When we see Uber, selling on Etsy, starting your own social media marketing, whatever, social media page, all these kind of gig works or contracting or side hustles, this is almost a necessity now, to where just working your one job isn't good enough if you're lucky enough to have a job that is stable, right? You also need to do something on the side. So you can't just work and then relax. Nope, it's work all day at your job, then work on your gig on the side at night, okay? And then we talked about degree inflation here, but another big thing is AI and automation. Everyone's worried about AI taking their jobs, right? Is this industry going to exist in a few years? Is that one going to exist in a few years? What's going to happen? So there's been some interesting stuff with the explosion of AI, right? Chatbots are very easy and readily accessible. Reduces the need for a lot of written content writers, right? Whether you're a paralegal, actual blog writer, or employed in a news company or something like that. Some of these tools are helpful, some of them are hurting people, but we've also seen Meta very recently stop some of the hiring and expansion for AI because in a lot of cases, for example, ChatGPT, OpenAI, they're not profitable. They're losing money. So they're investing a ton of money and they're not getting the return out of it. It's still a very useful technology everyone sees, but it's questionable whether this is just a bubble or what's going on there, okay? So getting away from some of that, let's talk about the social consequences of when young men aren't doing well. What happens, right? What are the societal consequences? Well, marriage rates are down big time. In 100 years ago, it was roughly 12 marriages per 1,000 people. Today, it is roughly 6 marriages per 1,000 people. So a 50% decline in adults getting married. So because if you can't earn enough money to be stable, to have your own thing, to feel confident, right? To attract a significant other, then likely that is obviously a precursor to even thinking about getting married, because if you're stuck living with your parents with poor economic kind of uncertainty there, then you're not going to get married, okay? So not only is the marriage rate down, it's also people are waiting longer to get married. In roughly 100 years ago, in the 20s, the average age for a man getting married was 23. Average age for a woman was 21. Now that is 30 and 28. So 30-year-old men is now the average age for getting married, 28 for women. So that is a pretty big jump in how long people wait to get married, and largely that's due to finances, okay? There's other social issues and things wrapped in there, but finances is a huge part of it. So because of that, we see a huge fertility drop, and this is a scary one. So when the fertility rate is below replacement level, meaning future generations there's less people, right, and the older people are aging out and dying, this means population collapse. So to just keep the fertility rate at replacement level, that's roughly 2.05 births per woman. Right now we're sitting at roughly 1.62. So this is not even at replacement rate, right? So because young men don't have as secure financial futures, they're waiting or not getting married at all. Actually, this is 25% of people that are age 40 or above have never been married. That's an all-time high. So this is kind of a worrying statistic showing people either aren't getting married at all or waiting, and then that causes fewer children to be born, okay? And then also another social consequence is the rise of NEETs, right? Not in education, employment, or training. Basically sitting around and doing nothing, not trying to go to school, not trying to learn a skill, not trying to look for a job. and not training for one. So people just kind of opting out and being like, hey, this shit sucks, not looking so good here. Now I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to sit at home, jerk off, scroll on my phone, and, live off of my parents or the government or something like that. So NEETs, this has been an increasing trend and kind of social consequence. So some of the cultural and policy factors at play here. Well, we see education is dominated by women. So now for college, it is 60% female, 40% male. Attendance at universities, four-year colleges, right? And women graduate at a 10% higher rate than men. So this has been a trend that is now showing that women are pursuing four-year degrees and getting educations. Men are not. And one of the interesting things here is now for men, for younger men, actually for all men, the unemployment rate for whether you have a degree or not is the same. It's roughly 5%. So if you decide to go to college, if you don't decide to go to college, that has been converging where, you used to have higher unemployment for people without college educations, men for college educations, and less unemployment for men with degrees, right? But now it's roughly the same, which means men are seeing, hey, this college thing might not be for me because I'll come out with all this debt. I'm just as likely to be unemployed with or without a college degree. And, there's all this internet stuff going on, social media, AI, just crypto, all of these other things that men take interest in. And there's other avenues for employment. And so education is continuing to be female dominated and men are opting out there. Okay. Another thing is family court rules and family court law with no fault divorce, right? No one's at fault. Just if you feel like it, if you're unhappy, get divorced, cool. We all know that men pay the price here. Almost always do women get custody of the children, and then also men pay 50% of their net worth, lose their house, lose everything, right? And have to pay women for settling, their divorce. So men get absolutely fried in divorce court, right? And women are mostly the beneficiaries, meaning men see this as mostly a risk. Getting married is signing your life over to someone, right? And they don't necessarily see the benefits there if things go south, okay? Another thing is men's non-existent safety net. The difference between how society treats men versus women is very apparent, right? Women have inherent value to society. They're loved. They're supported. Men, unless you're successful, you have status, you have money, you have power, no one gives a shit about you, right? So men, unfortunately, when they suffer, no one cares. And they just kind of fade away into the blackness. So very doom and gloom seeming for the most part with the trend since the 20s and beyond, with economics, with employment, with social consequences, with cultural and policy factors not seeming to help us out. But there is a bright side. There are things you can do. So let's talk about it, right? So first and foremost, realizing maybe college isn't the way, but if it is, great. Choose your degree wisely and weigh your options and try not to come out with all this debt. But building a high income skill is and always should be your primary goal as a young man. If you're going to put time and energy and effort into anything, maybe put down the video games and put down the porn and put down the fucking social media and think about building high income skills, whether that is with certifications, with a degree, going into the trades, getting an apprenticeship, right? Find some way to AI proof yourself and have a marketable skill that will last for your lifetime or a while and pay you, okay? This does not happen overnight, But you basically just need to pick what you're interested in and pursue that, and go down that route. Entrepreneurship and building side hustles. Myself, I have a day job. I work in a corporate office. Then I have 2 YouTube channels. I have an e-commerce business. I've done consulting and other things on the side, right? And I'm trying a lot of different things. I'm engaged and not just staying stagnant, and that's something I would recommend. So YouTube, freelancing, gig work, right? Anything to where you can build a sustainable source of income outside of your primary thing. So health and fitness, you should prioritize this. Really, you should get your body in shape so that your mind gets in shape, so that you can get your finances in shape. And so really, it's never been more of a shit show than ever before, but there's also never been as much opportunity as there is today. You can make one move and set yourself up for life, but you have to be very conscious of the route you pick. Click the video appearing on your screen, and I'll see you in the next one.